Good evening. My name is Jackie Stevens. I was born in the early 60s in upstate New York, the youngest of 4 children, born to Harry and Marjorie Smolak. My siblings are quite a bit older than I am. This figures into my story a little later on. My brother is 14 years older than I am. My sister Linda is 11 years older than I am, and my sister Sandy is 10 years older than I am. We lived in Auburn, New York, which was fairly close to Syracuse and the Canadian border. So as you can imagine, we got a lot of snow. We were inside several months out of the year. And sometimes I wonder if that's why my mother loved Christmas so much. From Thanksgiving to Christmas, it was all holidays. She moved from one holiday-related activity to the other. Christmas was a big deal in my house when I was little. Decorating in the 60s and 70s was beautiful, if slightly flammable. We had this kaleidoscope that sat behind the tree and shined these beautiful colors through the tree into the room. We had a traditional nativity set, which sat on top of our console TV, so you know there was lots of room, and it also sat on angel hair with light underneath it. That angel hair was basically fiberglass, by the way. We always had a live tree, and because I was small, I thought that it was big enough to touch the ceiling every single year. Decorating the tree was, of course, a high point. One year we tried to string popcorn, and I ate a lot more than I strung. Putting the angel on the tree, the topper, that was the last thing we did, and there was something about that last thing that just made my heart so full, ready for the holiday. Do you know how smells can bring back memories? Baking turkey can drop me into my childhood kitchen very quickly. I can still hear those murmured conversations, people pouring drinks. I can still picture my mother in heels and a dress, Sunday apron, her hair salon curled, putting together these really, really complicated meals while I was just completely underfoot. Because I was the youngest, I was a little bit spoiled. My parents delighted in nurturing my belief in Santa Claus, and my sisters and brother were under strict orders not to tell me that Santa Claus did not exist. Of course, we had the cookies and milk that we left out, and they were always consumed. And there were always a present or two for me that was in a different wrapping paper. One year, remember I mentioned the snow? One year I looked out Christmas morning. My father had managed to make reindeer tracks in the snow. I fell for it 100%. I believed in Santa Claus until I was 8 years old. In 1970, strange things started happening in my life. My mother was in and out of the hospital with what I was told was a gallbladder issue. In reality, she had been diagnosed with a late-stage melanoma. And on November 13th, 1970, my mother died. What I can tell you, thank you so much. What I can tell you from my experience in losing my mother that young is that it felt as though the foundation of my life had cracked, and even the routine and simple things weren't routine or simple anymore. Everything just seemed a little bit off. I don't remember where we spent Thanksgiving that year, but I do remember a specific day after Thanksgiving. I was sad. I didn't want to go to my father because I was concerned that he would think that he needed to do something to cheer me up, or So I decided to go sit in my sister's closet. My sister had this really cool closet that ran along the roof of the house so that towards the back it was really small and narrow, and it made a cozy little hiding place. And as I started to walk back there, I found a stockpile of presents. My mother had managed, I'm sure with the help of my sister Sandy, to buy all of my Christmas presents and have them wrapped. And sitting there was a wrapping paper that none of those presents were wrapped in, but there were a couple more sitting there with that paper. To Jacquie from Santa Claus. So of course my first thought at 8 years old is, how did Santa get the presents here so early? And then it struck me that my mother was Santa Claus. And my mother was gone. In that moment, my grief for my mother was just overwhelming. Armed with the knowledge that Santa did not exist, my father and I flew to Salinas, California to have Christmas with my brother Bill and my sister-in-law Kelsey. Kelsey is truly one of the best people I've ever met in my life. She is warm, kind-hearted, loyal, a great cook. Truly the best sister-in-law you could ask for. And my brother, he's okay too. He's used to that because Kelsey's really awesome. So when we landed in California, there were leaves on the tree. There was no snow. The ground looked muddy. Bill and Kelsey gave us the most fabulous Christmas you could imagine. But I was sad. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel like Christmas. When I was 11, my dad remarried and we moved to Florida, where Christmas not only became my stepmother's holiday, but it was in Florida, which was completely different. Yeah, it was fun to call my relatives and say I had been swimming Christmas morning, but overall, Christmas made me sad. I missed my mother. And with all of these different things that my stepmother did, I just missed my mom so much. It felt like I was just doing a pantomime to get through Christmas. In May of 1977, my father died. He had been diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease when I was a young child. He had gone to a big cancer hospital in New York, and they put him in a very long remission. After he died, I didn't stay in Florida very long. In the summer of 1977, I moved to Philadelphia with my sister Linda. Linda, at the time, was working on her master's degree at Temple University. And honestly, it was the best place I could have been. She was kind, patient, talked to me, held my hand when I cried. All this while being a young woman with her own grief. As summer moved to fall and fall moved to winter, things started to look kind of familiar. Leaves fell off the trees. The ground got cold and hard, and eventually it snowed. After Thanksgiving, Linda rocked right into Christmas. Now remember, Linda had 11 more years with my mother than I did, so these traditions are totally ingrained in Linda. And as we did our shopping, wrapped presents, and made our mother's recipes, it didn't feel like I was mourning my mother as much. It felt as though we were honoring our parents and moving forward with love. My sister Linda moved to Ohio, and I came back to Florida, where I got married. And in 1982, I gave birth to my daughter, Kathleen. That marriage didn't last very long. And when I divorced that husband, I decided to start taking Kathleen up to Linda's for the holidays, I wanted her to have a family holiday like I was used to. By then, my sister had children, and Christmas was starting to become a big deal in our family again. Now, as we got older, the traditions changed a little bit. There was spode Christmas pattern china on the dinner table. And instead of a nativity scene, we had a Christmas village that our children put together every year. Before they aged out of that Christmas village took up a whole room. And it was that same feeling as we were teaching these traditions to our children of honoring our parents and moving forward with love. And now I'm 60, and memories get a little fuzzy and indistinct. I'm not quite sure when we switched to turkey sausage for Christmas breakfast, or if we always used Concord grape jelly in our thumbprint cookies. And even though it was my mother's traditions that drew me back in, I realized I was holding my mother very tightly wrapped up in the memories of Christmas, as though if I did it right, I could bring her back. And then I realized Mommy had been here with me all along in my heart. And even though it was her traditions that drew me back in, yeah, decorating is fun, Christmas dinner is awesome, and I'm never gonna turn down a present. But what I learned and what I know is true is that Christmas is best when it's spent with your family, however that looks for each of us. Thank you very much for sharing this with me, and have a happy holiday.